see his contact information on the slides that he will be showing us. And if you have any questions, please post your questions on the chat, or if he has questions for you, please post your answers on the chat. Thank you, Martin, and please introduce yourself as well.
Thank you very much, Arlene. I'm Martin Hellmer, as Arlene said. I am currently the managing director of the cybersecurity practice at a Phoenix-based consulting firm called Sunhawk Consulting. I recently retired from the FBI. So by recently, I mean in May of this year, I retired from the FBI after 23 years of service. I finished my career here in Phoenix, Arizona, working white-collar crime. Prior to that, in Phoenix, I headed up the FBI's Arizona Cybercrime Task Force. I transferred here from Washington, D.C. in 2011 to take that role. And I began my career prior to my time in Phoenix in Washington, D.C. in 2002, where I investigated primarily national security matters. So with that, I really appreciate everyone's time today. I'm going to try and be respectful of everyone's time. I think we have a hard stop of 12:30, and I do have quite a bit of material to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get moving. When in the FBI field offices that I worked out of, whenever there was a bank robbery in town, they called it out over our loudspeaker system. And it always surprised me whenever I heard of a new bank robbery. And believe me, there were new bank robberies every day. Every day someone robs a bank, at least in big cities like Phoenix and Washington, D.C. And they do that so that the folks the FBI agents who investigate bank robberies can respond as quickly as possible to the crime scene. But it surprised me because it's just such a baffling thing that people are still robbing banks when we live in this internet era, when it is so easy to reach any of the other 5 billion or so people who are connected to the internet anonymously, and with only a little bit of know-how that you can learn for free online, steal far more money than what a typical bank robbery gets away with, which is only about $500. So why is it that online crime is a problem? Well, it's because exactly what I just referenced. It's that there are so many people connected to the internet. And by virtue of that, the internet is a neighborhood of sorts. It's a virtual neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood, and it is a bad neighborhood. And I'd like you to think of it like that. Although there are some good people conducting normal commerce and good business on the internet, there are a lot of people who are online for illicit purposes and for purposes of stealing money from you, or stealing valuable information from you. There's 5.5 billion people on the internet, an estimate as of the end of 2024. But that means that there's probably about at least 10 billion devices connected to the internet, because if you're like me, you have a couple of devices that you connect to the internet with at any given time. And most people are like that. And these devices that we connect to the internet with, cell phones, laptops, et cetera, well, they have vulnerabilities, firmware, software, hardware vulnerabilities that bad guys can exploit. That's why from time to time you'll receive a notification from a software provider, or your hardware provider like your iPhone, with some sort of a software update, and it's because they've identified a vulnerability. That's why it's important to upload to those fixes as soon as possible, because not only is it not only have the manufacturers identified a vulnerability, but they have, by virtue of pushing out that update, they've notified the bad guys about the same vulnerability, and they're counting on the fact that you're like me probably, and you get that notification about an update at a really inconvenient time, and you think, I'll do that later. Well, the bad guys count on that, and they can scan the internet looking for any number of devices that might still have the vulnerability. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but in most cases, the bad guys don't necessarily even need to take advantage of those vulnerabilities in our devices, because they can count on our own as internet users, as human beings, they can count on the fact that we're probably going to make mistakes when we receive phishing emails or smishing texts, and we're going to click those links that they want us to click that allow them access anyway, or we somehow give up access to our accounts otherwise by virtue of weak passwords or um, other things that I'll discuss in a moment. So this is a breakdown of the internet users by region of the country, region of the world, as of the end of 2024. So if you look at the left-hand column here, you see that you'll see the region of the world. And I'll point out those countries or those regions where we do see a majority of online crime coming from. So Western Africa is the first one. There's only 187 million internet users there. Eastern Europe's another one. Again, they're 216.1 million. And then as you move upward, as you get into Asia, Southern Asia is where India is classified as being. We see a ton of online crime coming from India, and then moving into Eastern Asia. That's where the countries of Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand are, and China for that matter. And that's where we see a majority of online crime coming from. And there's, surprise, surprise, there's 1.3 billion users of the internet there. This is an office building located in Myanmar, at which is from bottom floor to top floor, has nothing but employees devoted to the conduct of online crime. The folks working in this building perpetrate an online scam called pig butchering. It's a scam in which some anonymous person might contact you via text or in a social media site, and they pretend like it was an accidental contact. And then I receive the text messages all the time. Hi, how are you? And that's usually the beginning of one of these pig butchering scams. And what they do is they try and befriend you. Oops, I'm sorry. What's your name? Where are you located? I'm sorry that I bothered you. And then they hope that you can continue with some sort of communication with them after that. And what they're doing at this point in the process is they're fattening you up like they would a pig. And then ultimately, after you feel like you've got a good friend in this other person who you randomly met online, supposedly, then the butchering starts. Then they'll start telling you about this great cryptocurrency investment that they've made a lot of money on, and they ask you to send them money. And that's the pig butchering part. And unfortunately, it's been a major source of devastation for a lot of good people who have been innocently taken advantage. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment, and I'll talk about other scams that are being perpetrated out of the same area in Myanmar along the border with Cambodia. Because I do have a lot of slides, I am going to skip through this one, but this is a video of, well, I'll go ahead and start it, but this is a video that an American businessman took when he traveled to China. This goes back about 20 years ago. Before he left his room, he opened up his laptop computer and he started recording just to see what would happen. And you'll see that a bunch of people who appear to be maid staff, hotel cleaning staff, come into his room, and then they start rifling through his things. So obviously they're not cleaning staff. They are Chinese intelligence staff. And they're talking about whether they should search his computer now or search it later. And you'll see at the end of the video here, there's a woman who is putting an earpiece in her ear, presumably talking to the surveillance team following around the American businessman. So this is the way that nation-state adversaries used to have to commit espionage. They used to have to do really overt things like this, or they used to have to recruit people who had access to the information from inside an organization. Well, anymore, with the dawn of the internet, they can usually, our nation-state adversaries can usually just steal the information by hacking into it. This is a photograph of the United States government's F-35 strike fighter. We spent billions of dollars building it. This is the same version of the Chinese. This is a Chinese version that popped up over there. about 10 years ago, and I can assure you that the United States government did not share the blueprint with the Chinese government. They were able to hack and steal enough information to build their own version. This is how the FBI characterizes online criminals in severity from left to right. So you see on the far left end of the spectrum here is the hacktivists. These are the guys who wear Guy Fawkes masks, and they make about 99% of the noise, but they're only 1% of the problem. And the far right are those folks like nation state adversaries, terrorists, who are committing online activity, nefarious online activity for purposes of warfare. And then you've got everything in between. I would guess that the folks you're most worried about are the folks in the second column, those who are committing online crime for purposes of financial gain. So we'll talk more about them in a moment. But what are they targeting? And whether they're nation state actors or people who are committing crime for financial gain, they want everything, because everything they can turn into a commodity. So all of these things here that you see on this list are of value to the people aiming to steal them from you by virtue of their hacking activities. If you've never heard of it, there's a portion of the internet. It's actually the largest portion of the internet. It's called the dark web. It's about 80% of the internet. It's that portion of the internet that is not indexed by normal search engines like Google or DuckDuckGo. To access it, you must download a piece of software called Tor. It stands for the onion router, and that's because the software is built to layer your internet traffic after you've downloaded it to computer between a bunch of different computers. So if you think of it like normally when you access a website, it's your computer going directly to that website. Well, when you use Tor, it bounces through a series of other computers before it gets to its ultimate destination on that web, on the dark web. And the return result from that website comes through another series of computers. And those computers that it's bouncing through or hopping through are other computers who have downloaded the onion router software. So to download it, and I don't recommend you do this for a number of different reasons, but to download it, you go to torproject.org and you just hit that big purple button. And then once you do, you can access the dark web. And out on the dark web, you can buy any number of things, including stolen credit cards. This is a site at which you can buy stolen credit cards. You can see each one's worth $8.50. There's a site at which you can buy passports, drugs, guns. This is a site at which you could contribute to the terrorist group ISIS. This site is a fake, but it pretends to be a site at which you can hire a hitman. Here's one where you can buy counterfeit US dollars. Here's just sort of it's a website almost like Amazon where you can buy a smorgasbord of different things. And finally, here's a site at which you can buy different versions of ransomware. Ransomware is a really prevalent problem for companies, organizations, governments, because the way it works is the perpetrators of the ransomware scam, they work out of big office buildings like the one I showed you earlier in different parts of the world. Well, once they gain access to a computer network, they encrypt the entire network and steal data from it. And then they send a ransom note to the owners of that network saying, unless you pay, $1 million or so to us in Bitcoin, we are going to keep your computer network seized. Well, the folks who run these ransomware gangs don't hide themselves. They have Instagram accounts and social media accounts. This is the site for one of the ransomware gangs called Interlock on the dark web, and you can see they've got an about us profile. This particular ransomware gang targets critical infrastructure, healthcare, education, and commercial enterprises. So you can see, if you do scroll through their website, you can see there's the spoils of their hacks. So number one up top here on the list is Loyola College. They hacked, or rather they attacked Loyola College with ransomware. They stole a bunch of data from them, and here's where you can buy it. So you can hit that big red button there to purchase the data that they've stolen from Loyola College. This is just continuing to scroll down the list of their targets. They're indiscriminate in who they target. You see the bottom one here is Fowler Elementary School. This is another ransomware gang's website out on the dark web called World Leaks. And this group targets particularly or specifically healthcare entities. Healthcare entities are especially good targets for ransomware gangs because the victims, the targets themselves, excuse me, have a particular incentive to just pay the ransom and get their network back up and running, because in many cases, the inability to access their networks can negatively impact patient care. So again, as you scroll down through the companies or through this gang's site, you can see the spoils of their victims of their attacks. Friedman Healthcare is one here that you see at the top. In 2020, the second quarter of 2025, the average ransom payment made by a victim company was $1.13 million. And these are the most common initial attack vectors for these ransomware attacks. The first one, the dark blue line here, is remote access compromise. All that means is that they were able to access the computer network using either stolen credentials or by guessing someone's password. The second most common vector of attack was phishing. So again, those emails or those texts that you receive as an employee and you accidentally click on a link that you shouldn't click on. So 80% of attacks, of all online attacks, are facilitated by virtue of weak passwords, stolen passwords, and phishing attacks. So if we could just eliminate those issues, we, the people who usually fall for them, well, we could eliminate 80% of online cyber attacks. So again, the common MO of these hacking organizations is social engineering, phishing, and weak passwords. The bottom three on this list, well, these are things that our IT and our cybersecurity folks need to worry about. We, as the day-to-day users of our computer networks and systems, need to worry about the top three and maintain hyper vigilance online, and be very wary when you receive emails and text messages, even if they're from people who you think you might know, because their account might have been compromised. Always think long and hard before you click on a link in an email or in a text message. Be careful about what you put out there online in your social media accounts, because these criminal gangs, again, they work in these big office buildings overseas, and they've got many employees, some of whom have the responsibility of combing through and researching their intended targets, you and your social media accounts, so that they can craft emails and text messages that make them most alluring to you, most attractive to you, in hopes that you might click on some malicious link that they embed in it. So another common tactic of these guys is they spoof emails. So again, if you work for a company and your email address, let's say your email address is, your legit email address is john.ceo@abcco.com. Well, they might just create a Gmail account with that same information, john.ceo.abcco@gmail.com. And it looks close enough, but they fool a lot of people using this tactic. So this is just some screenshots of my own Hotmail account. And, I took these when I was still an FBI agent. Didn't mean I wasn't not a target. So be very careful when you receive emails, when you open up emails. I received this email from Coinbase support. I don't have a Coinbase account, but they wanted me to open up an attachment. I received this email from Amazon, well, it appears to be Amazon Web Services. I don't have an Amazon account, believe it or not. I use my wife's, but again, they wanted me to click on this link to update my account information, just a phishing email. I receive them via text too. They want me to, this is one from presumably Wells Fargo. I do not have a Wells Fargo account, but they wanted me to click on it, this malicious link. These things are just everywhere. I don't have an AT&T account, but again, I received this message from AT&T. They wanted me to click a malicious link. If you do happen to click on a malicious link, It'll sometimes take you to a totally fraudulent website at which they want you to enter in some information to presumably validate your identity. Well, all you're doing when you do that, if you're at a malicious site, when you click on one of those malicious links, is you're just giving them access to your account. You're giving them the keys to the kingdom. This is an email that was sent to the Democratic National Committee back during the 2016 election. It got sent by a malicious actor to a bunch of staffers there. They were using Gmail as their email solution. And there was a link here at the bottom to click to change your password. All that happened when the folks who did fall for this clicked on that link is they went to a website and they gave up their legitimate usernames and passwords to the bad guys. These are the most commonly used passwords worldwide in 2024. If one of these is your password, I suggest you change it because they're very easily guessed. You can see the middle column here, time to crack. All of them are less than 1 second using current computing power. They're most commonly used passwords in the United States, very similar to the last list. These are recommendations for, these are password cracking times for computing power back in 2024. So if you can see in the top left, if you have a numbers only password with only 4 characters, it can be instantly cracked. But if you have an 18 character password, bottom right, with numbers, upper and lowercase letters and symbols, it'll take 19 quintillion years, if that's what QN stands for. So maybe something in between, maybe a 10 character password that's upper and lowercase characters, that takes 1,000 years to crack. But again, this is the importance of having a strong password. In 2024, according to data reported to the FBI, there were $16.6 billion in online crimes. This is only the tip of the iceberg. This is only crimes actually reported to the FBI. Unfortunately, it's only trending upward from year to year. Losses are reported to the FBI are only getting higher and higher. And folks over 60 are a particularly vulnerable group. Not only have they saved money for their whole lives, but they're not particularly savvy online. So they are, unfortunately, highly victimized. Top 10 states by loss, California is number 1. Texas is number 2. So the most populous states have reported the most online crime to the FBI. These are the types of the top reported crimes to the FBI. Investment fraud is number 1, and that's primarily as a result of that pig butchering scam that I highlighted at the beginning of my talk. Business email compromise is number 2, 2.8 billion. That's where the bad guys either hack into someone's email account or they spoof an email account, send an email to someone who works for a company asking for them to send a wire transfer to a new bank account or to some vendor. And then tech support fraud, 1.5 billion. I'll tell you this about tech support fraud as I wrap up real quick. No legitimate tech support company will proactively contact you. It works the other way around. So those pop-ups that you see on your computer sometimes, or even a phone call, that is never a legitimate tech support business. There is a lot of online crime. So the scams that we just discussed about emanating from this part of the world. Myanmar in particular, Myanmar endured a military coup back in 2021. And along the Moe River, which separates it from Thailand, a bunch of compounds have sprung up at which there's nothing but people doing online crime, specializing in different types of it. This is an overhead shot of that portion of the world in 2021, immediately before the military coup. This was it in 2024 afterwards. So as you can see, it's been built up, and those buildings are filled with online criminals. These are some close-up shots of those compounds along the river. The lower right here is a photograph of some people who had essentially been human trafficked and were being forced to work as slaves in an online criminal scam at one of those compounds. So just some quick reminders. Please continue to think of the internet as a bad neighborhood. By virtue of being on the internet, you can be contacted by any number of bad actors who are also online. 80% of cyber incidents aren't hacks. It's usually just mistakes that we make. We're usually the weakest link. So Focus on having strong passwords. If you have the ability to do multi-factor authentication for access to your accounts, do so. Be very aware of those phishing, of the emails and text messages that you receive, and of people who contact you otherwise, whether it's over the phone or any number of means. That is all I had. Arlene, are there any questions that I might be able to answer in just a couple of minutes, understanding we've hit my time limit?
Yes, thank you. I have one question that I got directly. How can we protect the senior citizens?
I think it's being aware that they are particularly vulnerable to these scams, and because of that, being in contact with your loved ones who are seniors, who are online, and talking to them about their online activity, having a conversation with them about being aware, asking them, or being aware, I should say, about phishing emails, about the prevalence of phishing emails and online scams. And asking them about what social media sites they might be on. A lot of these scams targeting seniors are perpetrated in online dating sites. A lot of vulnerable older people who have lost a husband or a wife go to these dating sites, and then all of a sudden they're targeted by these nefarious actors who contact them there. So it's really just a matter of ensuring that you maintain close contact with your senior loved ones who are online.
Thank you. There's a question here. What's the difference between phishing and smishing?
The difference is how it comes in. So phishing emails come in via email. Smishing emails come in via text message.
Thank you. What is your recommendation for someone who is in the middle of the scam but can't see it? They cannot see it.
Well, I'd recommend you have a heart-to-heart with them. And number two, you can contact the FBI or local police. When I was working as explain to them what's going on, and ask if they will come out and conduct an interview, a law enforcement interview of your loved one, to find out what's going on and to alert them that they're being scammed. And I did that a number of times